Welcome to the Alternative Leader podcast. My name is Mary Williams and I'm the Mind Architect. I'm also founder of the Alternative Leader Academy and author of It Begins With You. This podcast is dedicated to inspiring the leaders of today to lead with intention, both in their personal and their professional lives. My guests from across the world share their challenges, their knowledge and their experiences so that we can learn from these powerful insights to help us lead with strength, determination and compassion. My guest this week is Michelle Minnikin. She's a chartered psychologist and coach with 20 years spent in organisational psychology, recruitment, coaching and personal development. As the culture captain, aka the quartermaster of Work Pirates, she is on a mission to unfuck work. She loves helping aspiring work pirates find the courage to rewrite the rules and start their own mutinies to make work better. On top of all of this, she's also writing a book called Good Girl Deprogramming, which is going to be due out in autumn. I have to say that I actually prefer Michelle's title as culture captain, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. So Michelle is on today to talk about her recent diagnosis of ADHD in adulthood and how that's made her reflect on her childhood, but also on her leadership in her own business. So let's move over to Michelle. So Michelle, your title is Captain of Culture for Work Pirates, which I absolutely love. And in fact, I love the name of your podcast, which I'm going to get you to tell us about as well. But what is a Captain of Culture and what is Work Pirates?
Okay, so thank you for asking that question. So my background is I'm an organisational psychologist. So I spent my entire career in recruitment, development, organisational, coaching, that type of thing. And to cut a very long story short, wheels fell off my corporate career back in 2016. When I left my last, I say, proper job to set up my own business, which is something I always wanted to do because I have a real big autonomy and freedom thing that I don't like being told what to do. So I left corporate, set up a normal, boring psychology practice in 2016, and I was doing bits and pieces of support with selection and assessment, leadership development, coaching, and it was doing okay, but it just wasn't me, proper professional psychology practice. But a couple of years later, I read a book called Be More Pirate by the marvelous Sam Conniff, who you know.
I do know, forwarded my book. So yeah, brilliant.
And it was kind of like, oh, these are my people. And it put what I'd always thought about work and the workplace into a bit of it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah. So
another 2 years it took me to actually think of what I should be doing rather than my boring psychology practice. And by that point, I had managed to co-opt my partner, James, to come and work with me. And we're sitting up actually where we're sitting now in the summer of COVID, 2020. And I was like, something has got to change with COVID, like most people. Yeah. Every single person, business just disappeared off the horizon. And we need to do something about this. And within 10 minutes of me saying that, we had, Work Pirates. It pretty much does what it says on the tin. All of the social media at Work Pirates were available, which is bonkers. The .com was available.
It wasn't crazy.
It wasn't trademarked. So we checked everywhere. It was like, okay, there was just this Work Pirates thing kind of just sitting around waiting for us. And we just decided to go for it. And when everyone kept asking us what it was, we tried to give them a professional answer. And then one day on a Zoom call, I was like, we're just trying to unfuck work. And that's what it just stuck. So we are on a mission to unfuck work.
And that's going to be the title of your podcast, isn't it?
Unfucking Work is going to be the podcast title. So I still cringe a little bit because there's still a bit of that good girl conditioning in me, but yeah. So
that's fantastic. And talking about that good girl conditioning, you're actually in the middle of writing a book, aren't you, called Good Girl Deprogramming?
I am.
So tell us a bit about that, and why is that book important to you?
So I grew up, army family, travelled around a bit, ended up begging to go to boarding school. I thrived in boarding school because there was routine and structure and rules and boundaries and things. And I was the archetypal good girl. I would just, instead of saying things, I'd keep my mouth shut. I'd be a doormat. I'd put everybody else before myself. And 20, or was it 20? It was still 2020. It was just
it was a long year.
It was a long year. It was like last year. No, it wasn't. It was 2 years ago, Michelle. I put myself in for one of these women in business type of things. So I won a place on this women in business type of thing and ended up at the House of Lords of all places on International Women's Day. And this was just when we weren't allowed to hug people.
Yeah.
And I walked into the room and met this gorgeous, tall, blonde, leggy, amazing human, Anna. And she was telling the world about her recent ADHD diagnosis. And literally, it was like light bulb. So everything she was talking about was like, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. Oh, it's me. So it took me another 3 or 4 months to actually pluck up the courage to bring the GP and go, get put forward for the process of being assessed for ADHD.
And can I just ask how because I just want to pause you for a second, because for a lot of people that ends in disaster, doesn't it, actually speaking to their GP? So how was that process for you?
So I done lots of research, and I'm a psychologist. It's business and organizational psychology, but I was dead interested in the more sort of pathological stuff, and I've always been fairly interested in that sort of crime and criminals and why people do the things they do. And I went, as you can imagine, full Hermione Granger to my GP with a checklist of ADHD and some stories for each one, and some examples. And I was literally,
wow,
here's some stuff, here's some stuff. And she was like, okay. And then because I had done my research, I asked to be referred through the right to choose. Okay. So it's NHS right to choose. You can go privately. So it was a 3-year waiting list.
Wow.
To be assessed on the NHS. And it was only sort of 4 or 5 months to go private.
Yeah.
So it was literally, I think, the week before Christmas 2020. And I'm on a Zoom type of call with a psychiatrist, and he was asking me all these questions, and I still had my preparation, I had my stories, and I had people fill in the forms that they needed to fill in, and he was talking, and he got to the point where he's like, yes, I'm very, very I'm a flaming, she didn't say this, but a flaming ADHD, and he told me all of this stuff, and he asked me if I had any questions. And the whole time he was talking, all I could see was the top of his jumper. And he had like a Christmassy jumper on. So all I could see was it was like Star Wars, and it said, "This is my," and the whole time I couldn't really cope with what his jumper said. So my question was, what does your jumper say?
Did he go, no, you've definitely got ADHD?
Yes. So this is my happy face, and it's a picture of Darth Vader. So, but that was like, my brain just couldn't focus on anything else because it just needed to close the loop on what does his jumper say. So lots of grief I had to go through, because all of those times where I had messed up, or how people are treating me poorly, you know, 1.5 divorces down the track. And it was just like, you had to go through those stages of grief. It was really interesting. So there was lots of anger, there was lots of sadness, and mostly I worked with a counsellor, coachy type of lovely human, and self-forgiveness, and actually figuring out finally what it was that I wanted to do. And stop doing all of the different things. So at this point, I was volunteering for this, running that, you know, 4 businesses, and you know, no wonder we were bloody shattered. Something had to give. So we just decided to go all in, all of our chips into Work Pirate, and write this book based on good girls. So society trains women and girls to behave themselves and do the things that they think they should do, and it's passed down from mother to daughter to mother to daughter, mother to daughter, and you get it reinforced everywhere you go. And you know, when you have like a big shock / realization, you pause and you think, so everything I've known about myself, bearing in mind I'm a psychologist, is just not true. What else is just not true? So I looked at this conditioning through the lens of coercive control, and it's staggering and worrying, and we need almost more women to be challenging that, and stop listening to what people think they should do, and start listening to think, you know, what they want to do.
So I've got a couple of questions. I'm interested if you're happy to share. You know, did you go down the medication route?
Yep.
Okay, and how have you found that?
So the interesting thing about the medication, and I'm having some, for a year it was brilliant, and I got COVID, and then I started getting, every time I took my meds I got like massive migraines. So so you know when you're in a yoga class and the yoga teacher, or you know, breathing or stretching class, and the yoga teacher says something along the lines of, so if you notice a thought coming into your head, please just picture them as little clouds and let them float off into the sky. And I used to sit there thinking, it's like hailstorms in my head. It's like thought. And what happened was the medication stopped that. So for the first time in my life, I was able to think, which was weird. It's like, ooh, I can now think. And one of the things that we're trained to do as psychologists is everything has to be referenced. So blah blah blah, this person said this person said that. It's like, well, what do you think? I wasn't allowed an opinion, I suppose, but I didn't allow myself an opinion because I hadn't done the research, and we have to sit on the fence and be all tentative. So I questioning me, I'm questioning psychology, I'm questioning how businesses are being run, how the world is run. So I'm like, I just have to get this out in the book. So yes, medication has been really, really helpful.
It's funny, isn't it? Because so I used to work in schools, and several of the kids that I was working with were diagnosed. And in fact, interestingly enough, their parents were often diagnosed at the same time. So I remember working with a 14-year-old boy, and he would sit there and hold his iPad in what looked like a bomb-proof case, which his parents obviously bought, and he would just spin it like this in his hands, just chuck it over and over. And I, you know, obviously I'm not in a position to diagnose, and so I sort of asked his parents to come in, thinking, I think he's got ADHD, and kind of subtly I need to sort of suggest they might want to look into it. And I remember his dad walked in, didn't sit on the chair, sat on the desk, swinging his legs, you know, couldn't sit still. And I was just like, Okay. It was really clear. And then so actually what I did was say, I cannot diagnose, but I'm wondering if, and it might be useful for you to go and do some reading. And the dad literally came back and just went, oh my God, that's me. And it was funny because actually the child was borderline and so not diagnosed, but the dad was diagnosed as like full on. But I think there's a real thing in the UK around medication, and having worked with children where I watched that ability for them to just stay in the room, for them to learn, for them to just suddenly like themselves. I'm pro medication if that's the right thing for you. And so, for me, one of the reasons I asked you to come on was actually I had a feeling that you had gone down medication route, because I think there's just a lot of scare tactics around it.
Yeah, and I think
it's
like with everything, isn't it? You have to make an informed choice, and I don't think I'll be on medication all my life.
Yeah.
It's my psychiatrist, him with the jumper. He was diagnosed with ADHD while he was doing his ADHD training. And he takes it when he needs to.
Yeah.
So it's more kind of, he's got something that he needs to focus on, or a long boring conference. Not his words, they're my words. And you can come off them and go on them. It's not something you, unlike antidepressants, where you
have to take them.
And I'm giving my perspective here as well, so I'm sure they're not all this, all ADHD meds are not created equally. But I'm having right bother with them at the moment. So.
Yeah. But it is that, isn't it? As I guess with all medication, about finding the right one and then finding a different one if that one stops working and things like that. I know, I used to work with the CEO, and she had it, and she would only take it when she had to write reports at the end of the month. She was absolutely fine, and she loved the kind of the fast voice in her head. But when she had to sit and write, she didn't do it. And I know, I'm sort of, I think probably this year I might go for diagnosis as well. And I had to go to a 2-day conference this week, and it was, the first time kind of I'd had to sit in a room since pre-COVID anyway. And then they were 10-hour days, and I was just sitting there, just going, it's until when, just how are you going to expect? And actually by the end of the second day, the last 2 speakers, I have to say, I kind of bunked off and went home, because I was just like, I've reached my timeout limit of being able to sit still in this room. So I think it's really fascinating, and I totally resonate with that, being in the yoga class. And I have a lot of clients, because I think obviously a lot of business owners have ADHD, whether they know it or not, who come and say to me, don't tell me I've got to meditate, don't tell me that. And I say, no, don't worry, because I can't do that. So what I'm actually going to teach you to do is slow your day down and enjoy your day, so you don't need to meditate, so that life is generally good. Because for me, I don't know how people don't think like you. I'm 100 million miles an hour in my brain. So it's fascinating. But coming kind of away from the adulthood and looking back at your childhood, now how do you view that differently, and how do you feel about it?
So my parents, my dad's in the army, and really invested in his job, loved it. And my mum was just dragged around after him, I suppose. And she did the best that she could with that. So there's 4 of us, I'm the oldest, and I discovered Enid Blyton books really young. And Enid Blyton wrote some series about, obviously the Secret Seven and the Famous Five, but then she also wrote Mallory Towers and Sinclair's books. And because my dad was in the army, I was so lucky that there was a scheme whereby, because we were living abroad, and army schools aren't the best, we weren't at that point, they might be brilliant now, I don't know, that I managed to persuade my dad and my mum to allow me to go to boarding school. And I totally thrived in that environment. Because we were fairly feral, let's face it. But there were you had to be here at this point.
Yeah.
It's like didn't need to make any decisions.
Yeah.
They did our washing for us. You know, it's
structure.
Do your homework, hang around with your friends. This was all kind of pre-internet and pre-phones and whatever days, and I loved it, and I was always fairly independent. So yeah, if I'd known what I knew, I think I'd have done much better at school. So it was always like I talk too much, standard. And I never quite fulfilled my potential. So say if I was predicted these grades, I'd always get like exactly a grade below. And there's like absolutely no rhyme or reason, apart from my biology teacher said to me, there's no, so he did it, I think she's from Wakefield and he did a Yorkshire accent then. She said, there's no way on earth you're going to pass your biology GCSE. And I'm like, hold my beer.
You've set the competition.
Yes, it's like that's not a normal way for somebody to be really motivated.
It's interesting, isn't it, that what your main reflection is structure, routine, because like you, obviously I work with a lot of business owners, and consistently that's what we see a lack of, isn't it? I'm struggling my business because consistency, structure, routine, discipline, all those things, I definitely, that's kind of my weakest spot. And I think it is fascinating, when people either come and they've self-identified, or they have just been diagnosed, and it is that sudden awareness of, oh my gosh, okay, so I need to bring in someone to help me do, almost tell, like you say, you will be in at 9, you will do this at 10, you will do this at 11, to bring in that structure. And then that's where you see the businesses thrive, when they have that sort of team around them. So I think it's a really fascinating thing, isn't it? Because actually ADHD lends itself so beautifully to business, and to fresh ideas. Pardon?
Or jail.
Yes, or jail. Yes, obviously it does indeed. And I was actually, it was funny you say that, actually, because I was actually thinking about prison as you were speaking about the boarding school. I was thinking, actually when you look at prisons, it is, you eat here and you do this and you do that. And we know, don't we, that with people with ADHD, they have a much higher likelihood to end up in prison and reoffend. You almost wonder if there's something where prison feels safe. Actually, well, I get this structure in here, especially if if home life hasn't been so great. And I do remember working with a lovely boy who was 8, and he just was obnoxiously behaved, and he didn't take his meds, and it was a kind of, in the end we sort of said to him, would you like to be able to do this and this, and he said yes, got him on the meds, and I think he cried the first time he'd been on them, because he just said, oh, like I just I didn't realize that I could kind of think, I could have that time to think, just have that pause moment. So it's really interesting. So there is an issue, isn't there, about women not being diagnosed, because actually this is kind of what I've read up on it, is that actually often we're at home having children and we cover it really well, and so that actually there's this kind of influx of women in their 40s being diagnosed. I mean, has that been your experience talking to people?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's kind of the stereotypical thing. So, we all grew up thinking that Rain Man was autism.
Yes.
And ADHD is a naughty kid in class kicking the back of your chair.
Yeah.
And couldn't sit down. So that sort of that stereotypical model of what we thought these things were, they didn't apply to us, because we were good girls, we behaved ourselves because that's what we were taught to do. And instead of being outwardly hyperactive, it's more inwardly hyperactive. And I don't think they were looking at the chatty, gobby, can't concentrate, looking out the window space cadets as girls. We were just immature.
Yeah.
And that sounds really Geordie then. And it just wasn't a thing. And then I think until you see something and you think, you would not believe the amount of people that are on business programs that I'm on, that I've been on, and that sort of read the stuff I write, or that are coming to me to ask me. You know, I read what you wrote. It seems really kind of, it resonates.
Yes. And I mean, that's in some respects how you ended up on the podcast, because obviously we know each other from me interviewing you a long time ago on LinkedIn, but it was a post that you wrote and I'd had that kind of kicking about in the back of my head for quite a few years really, but couldn't decide between, you know, maybe I'm just really chatty and a bit flighty sometimes. And then yes, you wrote something and I was just like, do you know, that really is me. And actually, even as you've been speaking through this, I'm thinking, yeah, do you know, I probably should go and get assessed. And I, you know, and I have dyslexia as well, which I also haven't been assessed for. But again, as I was just saying, it was picked up when I was writing my book, you know, by my partner. He was like, you're definitely dyslexic. And of course, it's all comorbid, you know, they all go together. Yeah. So you probably prompted me to go and get an assessment too, actually. But I know we need to come to an end because you have one of your very important pirate meetings coming up. But so tell me, first of all, tell listeners when is the podcast coming out and where can they find you?
James is just talking about it on the phone downstairs at the moment. So I think he's got it penciled in for the end of, I want to say May, but lovely. Soon.
Okay.
James just been diagnosed with ADHD too, but he's the inattentive type. So right. I have combined. So I'm, you know, that hyperactive, impulsive, and he's more forgetful. And distractible.
Two of my sons have ADD. They have the inattentive, and it's entirely different presentation, isn't it?
Oh, yes. But again, that's not something that gets picked up very often in at all as well. So that was the answer to one of your questions, but I've forgotten the second one.
So have I. Oh no, actually we're doing really well, aren't we? Completely off focus and off topic. Hey listeners, this is what happens when you have two ADHD people interviewing each other. It was, where can they find you?
So I'm fairly all over the place. I Work Pirates, anything at Work Pirates website, and LinkedIn is my main place that I hang out.
Lovely.
Because social media gets very overwhelming. There's too many places. So we've got support helping with all the other bits and pieces. But yes, if you actually want me, find me on LinkedIn.
Find you on LinkedIn. Great. And get your workplace unfucked.
Yep.
I love that. Well, I'm going to ask you the three questions that I always ask every guest. So thinking back about kind of your most challenging times, was there a book or film or piece of music that helped you through those times?
Well, I think so the book, so I've got two, because I'm the book I have to say is Be More Pirate, because that was just these are my people. And I recommend everybody needs to read it. And it's interesting. The way things are doesn't have to be the way that things are need to be going forward. And then the film, The Greatest Showman. Bloody love it. Really good songs. You know, I know it's all nonsense because he was a very bad man in real life, but Hugh Jackman does a really good job.
Yeah.
And the songs totally resonate, as does Frozen 2 through an ADHD lens. Frozen 2.
I haven't seen Frozen 2. I should watch Frozen 2.
Yeah, okay. I cry my eyes out every time. And Encanto as well now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And was there a piece of music, or was it the books and the films?
Yeah, I think
kind of music within the
I've got really weird music taste. It's very eclectic. Anything from everyone like Eminem and Limp Bizkit to like Take That on Westlife. Just like
I'm a bit like that actually, but it's a bit of everything, you know, from everything. Okay. And so I would really recommend Be More Pirate as well. I think it's an absolutely fantastic book, and obviously I'm very very fond of Sam, given that he forwarded my book for me, not knowing me at all, so that was rather lovely. And The Greatest Showman, I agree with you, it's just a fantastic all-round feel-good film, isn't it? And Frozen 2 I'll go off and watch. So if you had a tip for people to do, something they could either think or actually go and do today, what would it be?
I think you need to figure out what it is that you actually want. Take away those shoulds and this is what's expected of me. If money wasn't an object, what would you spend your days doing?
Lovely. Love that. And my third question, if you were standing in front of today's, leads the world, what would you say?
I wrote this down because it just made me giggle. So you need to all stop being such dicks and do better listening, not to the 1%, to normal people. And as Einstein said, we can't solve our problems with the same thinking we used to create them. So we can't listening to the same people and doing the same old thing. We're in multiple crises and we need to bloody act now.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Love that. Stop being dicks. I remember when I was thinking of titles for my books, for my book, I very nearly called it Leaders Sort Your Shit Out. It's just like, this is just literally my main message is leaders sort your shit out. Come to me and I'll help you do that, but in the end, I obviously didn't go for that, but maybe I should have. Maybe it would have had more impact. Anyway, Michelle, thank you so much for your time and for actually sharing your personal story and struggles. And I really hope that, really will encourage other women, especially to reach out and think about that diagnosis.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Williams, as you know, and thank you so much for listening to the Alternative Leader podcast. I search for guests to bring you lessons and learnings that can help move you forward in your life, help you achieve the success that you want to, in whatever way that shows up for you, to help you lead powerfully, whether that's in your own life, as your parenting, your personal, or your professional, and make you the best that you can be. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and review it, and please share it with as many people as you think also want to move forward and gain success in their lives. If you want to find out more about me, go over to my website, which is www.mari-williams.com. That's www.mari, which is MARI-williams.com, and you'll find links to all of my social media profiles there. There's also a Facebook community that you can join, and again, all the links will be on the website too. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and thank you so much for listening.